the perfect yogic breathing is where you breathe in, like, as I said, into the diaphragm, hardly moves, okay? But then you extend your exhalation, and then you'll go into an automatic pause where you're not even conscious of it for several seconds before the next breath.
So I'm absolutely thrilled to have Niraj Naik here on the podcast today, a returning guest who interviewed actually some years ago. And we met at the very first Health Optimization Summit in London back in 2019, pre-lockdown. And it's just been amazing to see the work that you've been doing over the last few years, Niraj. Absolutely awesome to have you here. So firstly, very warm welcome to the show.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's really exciting. So for people listening, I think there's so much now. Breathwork has become so much more topical than I think when you started Soma some years ago. It's becoming sort of more and more mainstream, and there's so many different varieties of breathwork that people can do. And I think a lot of people are really recognizing both the like longevity benefits, the health benefits, but also the neurological and performance benefits as well. I think probably the best place for us to start is for you to kind of describe what Soma breath is, and how it works, and then we can kind of dive into the different nuances and detail from there.
Sure. Yeah. So Soma Breath is my creation, which is really an amalgamation of all the different techniques and practices I've learned over the years, primarily because I went through my own healing crisis of my own. And going through that, I learned some really powerful transformational techniques that are based in things like tantric yoga, pranayama, which is the ancient school of breathwork, and then meditation, and then also going back into my love for music and creating music and realizing that music can actually have a real therapeutic use rather than just going out and having a party. And so firstly, there was a big need for me to make like these practices more fun and engaging, because in order to do something really well, you need to do it every day, and to get the real best effects of things like breath work, you need to do it every day. You need to make it into a daily practice. It should be part of your routine. But often people struggle with making their routines fun and enjoyable and sticky, where they want to keep doing it every day. So what I found with the music, bringing that element to it and all the other benefits of music, it's multidimensional. I made a practice that people absolutely love, but is also really therapeutic, very healing, and also can help with a variety of things, from psychological health benefits to also actual physical health benefits. So that has evolved now into a school of breath work and meditation and this music technology with Soma Breath, where we train instructors. We've got almost 2,000 around the world now. And we've created various protocols that help people. One of them is this 21-day awakening protocol that's even attracted Cambridge University, who are studying us right now. So we're doing like a long-term trial with them. So yeah, lots of amazing stuff has manifested since.
Really exciting. I think the 21-day awakening protocol, I absolutely love. Just even at the very beginning of the program, the kind of goal setting that you do as a part of it and visualizing is really incredible. And I think that's the biggest thing I've noticed with Soma is the music is amazing. It just sort of alters your whole state of being just so quickly, in a way,
Yes.
almost like I can feel the light energy. Like, it's really interesting because I was having a chat recently with Dr. Patrick Porter, the founder of BrainTap.
Hmm.
And we were talking about how light energy and how it kind of heals the body, and
Yeah.
my own kind of spontaneous healing experience when I was really sick, and just how much light energy I would have been emitting in that situation. And when I do the Soma breath work with the music, your music's truly beautiful. You really kind of feel that sense of just being completely encapsulated at the same time as radiating light and energy. It's just amazing. Absolutely amazing what
Yeah.
you've done there.
Awesome. That's so
Yeah,
cool.
it's
Yeah.
super cool. So how would you describe the differences? So in terms of the actual type of breath work that you're teaching here, it is quite stimulatory, isn't it? Insofar as quite similar to the Wim Hof style of breathing, it's quite stimulating on the body.
Well,
Could you explain a
actually,
bit more?
well, no, that's the thing. We're like a pharmacy. I used to be a pharmacist, and pranayama is really a pharmacy of different energy controlling techniques. Pranayama literally means energy control. So it really is more like a pharmacy. So we have ones that are more like Wim Hof method, like the pranayama versions of it. But we also have stuff that's like holotropic, which is very psychedelic in nature. But we also have functional ones, like if you want to go to sleep, we have relaxing breath techniques. If you want to fix constipation, we have one for that. If you want to unblock your nose, we have one for that. If you want more energy, there's ones for that as well. So we have like a pharmacy of different techniques. So it's the ones that you may have done, because that's the what powers a 21-day awakening protocol, are similar to like how the Wim Hof method works, but the difference, the nuance, is that we use rhythmic breathing, and that has a whole nother dimension to it. Rhythmic breathing with music, has a beat. You're breathing in time with a beat, creates like magic. It's an amazing feeling just from doing that. And plus, we also have the other elements of guided meditation, visualization techniques, and the whole musical experience behind it, which, it's more transformative that way. So, yeah, we have like a whole range of different stuff.
Yeah, and those are all contained more within the membership, are you, that you've recently launched in terms of people having a kind
Yeah,
of
yeah.
go-to toolbox?
Yeah, we consolidated our like really amazing courses like Breath Fit, which if you've heard of Buteyko method,
Yes.
it's similar to that in nature, but Buteyko got all of his techniques from yoga and pranayama. So I've gone deeper into the yogic techniques of breathing for healthy breathing. So what you do every day throughout the day, not just as a technique, like throughout the day, mindful breathing. So breathing retraining for optimum health. So we have a whole, course on that, which is included in our Samadhi membership.
Amazing. And so, what would you say for somebody kind of maybe who's listening to this and they're aware, they might have even started tracking it, right? Like with either a Whoop or an Aura, where they're actually seeing that they maybe do have some disordered breathing and their breathing rate's quite hard, quite fast, should I say. That's the first thing that I notice with kind of very high performing clients quite often, is they've got this really fast breathing rate, and actually just
Wow.
starting to slow things down makes such a massive difference to their heart rate variability, and also just kind of creating that resonance frequency and then making better decisions, slowing it all down. Um, what for someone sort of listening to this, what's the best way to get started in terms of training your breath?
So the number one thing we need to understand right from the foundation is the default state. So your default state is when you're not doing any techniques, right? It's just your natural state of being, okay? And the idea of all spiritual practices is to make your default state better, so that the time when you're not doing a technique, you're at the best you can be, all right? So according to the Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu, all right, a perfect human breathes like they're not breathing at all, okay? According to Buteyko method, slow breathing is the key foundation, but also nasal breathing, breathing through the nose, silent, subtle, rhythmic, and diaphragmatic. All right, that should be your default state. And if somebody's like making a noisy breath out through their mouth, and they are huffing and puffing, basically breathing faster than they need to, this is a sign usually of stress. Somebody who's got mental anguish, stress going on, or they're unhealthy, not physically fit. All right, and that going on for too long will cause chronic hyperventilation, overbreathing, which will lead to all kinds of different issues, from mental health issues to physical health issues, inflammation, even cardiovascular disease. All right, so the whole point of yogic practice, actually, if you look at it from a deep level, scientific level, it's all about training your default state to be one where you look like you're not breathing at all, right? You're hardly breathing. And your breath is very silent, so you can't hear it. It's in the diaphragm, but it's not like a deep breath. It's just a shallow, very shallow breath. And your chest will hardly ever move, all right? That's the key, all right? Now, that's something you can train someone to do with various techniques. The first one is to always observe that you're always breathing through your nose as much as possible into the diaphragm. That's the first foundation, all right? Everything else comes off the back of that. So that's the
Okay.
first step of our training.
Which a lot of people are not doing, right? They're constantly mouth breathing quite commonly.
Yeah, when you breathe through your mouth, you almost always breathe into your chest. It's like that.
Mm,
All right. But if you switch to your nose, you almost automatically, in most people, go straight to the diaphragm
mm. Yeah.
and
And
then
it's
into the chest.
super relaxing. It's
Yeah.
something I've been training recently in terms of going out and doing, like, I wouldn't call it running because you can't run fast when you're doing it, but going out jogging and actually in nature, just kind of in the forest and just purely nasally breathing. And as you build that up over time, what I've found is I can run, 30, 40 minutes just nasally breathing. It's amazing. It's like you were talking about the pharmacy, like you come back in this deep sense of relaxation. And it's funny because you've exercised, but actually all of those aches and pains that you can feel in your body from kind of training muscles and things like that just fall away. It's almost like a very
Yeah.
zen state that you reach.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
You get much more oxygen going into your body tissue cells when you breathe slowly and through your nose. You also produce nitric oxide, which is one of the most important gases actually in the body. And it's a vasodilator, it's a relaxer of the muscles, and it also helps get oxygen into the body tissue cells. So nitric oxide is super important. And yeah, well, a lot of our techniques revolves around improving your ability to produce nitric oxide.
Can you talk about like carbon dioxide tolerance as well,
Yeah.
for people to kind of understand that exchange? Because I think that's quite important. I know when we met, we were chatting about me improving that and getting into kind of states of hypoxia. And I was using a pulse oximeter, I think, at the time,
Mm.
to sort of measure how sort of low I could go. And
Yeah.
in a way, it felt a little bit scary as I was seeing it really sort of drop into the 70s. Can you just explain a little bit? I think people are really intrigued and want to know more about that.
Yeah. So we have this ongoing kind of struggle with carbon dioxide, right? Even though carbon dioxide is so important for our health, right? Because without CO2, you can't get oxygen off your blood cells and into your body tissue cells. So that's the cells of all your organs, muscles, and tissues. So if you have low body tissue oxygenation, that's how you get chronic disease. Your cells just die. They get starved of oxygen. And that's actually the cause of most kind of chronic diseases. So CO2, you need the right level of it in the body to maintain adequate gaseous exchange, right? So if you breathe very fast, you actually breathe out too much CO2 because when you breathe in oxygen. When you breathe out CO2. If you let go of too much CO2, you don't have enough of that gaseous exchange going on, right? So if you slow your breath down, and one of the quickest ways to slow the breath down is to change the amount of volume of air you can breathe in at any time or breathe out. So that's why the nose is designed how it is. It's a small, much smaller entry point than the mouth. So when you breathe in, you're already reducing the CO2 levels. Now, the CO2 in people, we have a different, it's like more like a thermometer, thermostat, right? So people are set to different levels of ability to handle CO2. CO2 is what tells your brain you need to breathe again. So if your CO2 level threshold is set too low, so your CO2 tolerance is set too low, what will happen is you'll breathe faster than you actually need to. You'll chronically hyperventilate, which actually is the cause for a lot of people's hyperventilation. Their CO2 tolerance is too low. But you can quickly train your body to increase that tolerance by slow, rhythmic breathing, right? And nasal breathing and doing various exercises that raises your CO2 levels naturally. And then you'll start to love that feeling of CO2 in your body. You'll actually start to actually feel a lot of the benefits of the relaxation you get, the calm into the mind, the more zen you become as you increase your level of CO2. Then what you'll find is your breath will naturally slow right down and even come to a pause up between every breath. And we've always been told, don't hold your breath, that's bad to hold your breath. Well, actually, it's complete nonsense, right? The perfect yogic breathing is where you breathe in, like, as I said, into the diaphragm, hardly moves, okay? But then you extend your exhalation, and then you will go into an automatic pause where you're not even conscious of it for several seconds before the next breath. This is the perfect yogic breath. It's like more like a shape like this, right? So it's like up like that. There's the inhale, long exhale, pause for a few seconds. It's more like that. Now, a normal breath, a normal healthy breath, not a yogic breath, is more like this without the automatic pause, right? And the unhealthy breath is really erratic. It's all over the place. No rhythm to it at all. And sometimes you might be gasping, sometimes you might be breathing normally, and it's erratic. So that's how most people breathe when they're stressed.
Mm.
But if you work on your CO2 tolerance and you really understand all of this, very quickly, like within days, you can reset it. It doesn't take long, right? You start to get that yogic breath coming in, and you'll just be more calm and more relaxed.
Amazing. And this is something you can measure, presumably, if you wanted to look at a baseline with like the Bolt score to see where your air hunger is.
Yeah, yeah, you can do like so. Buteyko called it the morning breath hold time test. So this is what we go by. Is we just go by his original teaching, where you can measure how healthy you are. But it has to be done first thing in the morning, empty stomach. You haven't done any techniques or anything beforehand, and you just breathe in through your nose. Normal inhale, normal exhale. Hold your nose, and then hold your breath until you get that first sign of stress. That first sign of stress is discomfort, right? Not like to a point of comfort, but slight discomfort. That's when you've held it too long, right? That's, well, when it goes to a point where you're gasping for air at the end of it, you held it too long. But if you hold it to the first sign of stress, okay, and where you're not gasping for air and you can still breathe in through your nose, all right, that's your morning breath hold time. And your morning breath hold time will be the lowest score of the whole day, usually. Okay, it's the time when uh, in the morning, usually your adrenaline's a little bit higher, and you've just had a lot of sleep, and the sleep is where a lot of the breath goes out of balance. So usually your morning breath hold time is going to be the worst. Throughout the day, it kind of normalizes a bit, and towards the end of the day, it may actually be the highest. Okay, some people have it more in the afternoon. But that's why you should do the morning one. Always work with your lowest score and go with that one as the grade. So around 20 to 40 seconds is average. That's what most people's range is. Okay, it's going to vary. But 40 seconds and above is healthy, very healthy. 60 seconds and above is like proper yogic kind of healthy, right?
Wow, that's high.
And less than 20 seconds is there's usually a sign of you're either unfit or you may be suffering from something, okay? But less than 15 seconds is usually a sign there's some illness going on that you need to fix. Below 10 seconds is something serious is going on, usually.
Interesting. And so I didn't know actually that you would want to work with the baseline morning measurement. That's interesting. And I
Yeah.
can see how that's affected by effectively by the cortisol awakening response.
Yeah,
Um,
because it varies so much during the day as well that you must always do it first thing in the morning,
mm,
like always at the
yeah.
same time. Otherwise, it's not an accurate score. Yeah.
And so with when you were saying you can sort of start to change your tolerance quite quickly, if someone took their Bolt score tomorrow morning and they saw it's like knocking in around 20, if they were to then start utilizing your techniques, how quickly should they see that begin to climb?
Within 3 days,
Interesting.
even some people within a couple of days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what about the work that you're doing? So you say the University of Cambridge is interested in studying soma.
Yeah, so
What aspects are they studying?
they're studying our 21-day awakening protocol, which is this rhythmic breathing followed by breath retention techniques, and then getting more and more progressively intense. And they're really studying the effect of the rhythmic breathing, what it does with the brain waves, and also the intermittent hypoxic protocol, the therapeutic uses of it. So they're just fascinated by the protocol I've created, the results we're getting. They've already done a one cohort study, which went really well, so they want to do more. So in a few weeks, they're going to start another batch. And this could go on for a while, and they're going to do like some incredible brainwave, brain mapping studies with super expensive gear that they got at the university, plus also doing some physiological stuff around intermittent hypoxia. And yeah, it's amazing that we've been picked for that. Yeah,
Isn't it? It's very, very
yeah.
exciting. Yeah, I can't wait to kind of hear the outcomes of it. Um, what I'd like to do is then ask you like just a few questions around how this might help in different areas. I want to kind of come back in a way to health in a moment. Um, if we're looking at from a sort of performance perspective, and we're looking to introduce more of a flow state, that's the thing that I'm always trying to really maximize is how can I live more consciously. At times we just go unconscious, and I think that's when our kind of breathing can become disordered as well, and we're much more reactionary. Whereas when we're in a more of a flow state, time falls away and you can really engage with that activity. And I find that's just so important, like in my work, creating my programs, content and things. What is a kind of breath work routine that people can use to enhance, that's reasonably quick, that they can use to enhance more of a flow state, to get more kind of alpha brainwave activity?
Right. Well, the foundation of like, in my opinion, of getting into these things like flow states is really the alignment with what you're doing, right? Like when you're really aligned with what you're doing, you just get into a flow state. You don't need any tricks or gimmicks. You just get into it. Like when I'm like really deep in working on my music and it's something that I love to do, like I'm really passionate about, I'm good at it. Like you have to be good at it. You got to be passionate about it and it's going to be aligned with your mission, like your life mission. And when you have that, every day becomes a flow state. Like you don't have to do any exercise, breathing techniques, nothing. You just get into it. I know people who are super in their flow all the time, who don't do anything, don't do any exercise, and they smoke cigarettes all day. So I really think that's the baseline of that. But to like make it more powerful and like to hack it, then you need foundation of good health, right? And that starts with the breath. So I really recommend doing our BreathFit course, right, which is in Samadhi. And then we have these daily doses that you do that gives you a burst of this intermittent hypoxia. And it's like a defrag switch for your brain. So another thing that affects flow states is when your mind gets cluttered, right? So when you hold your breath for a long enough period of time, it's like a defrag switch for your brain because every time you breathe in, you inspire inspiration. It means creating new thought. That's how we produce thoughts and ideas, is on the inspiration, right? The inhale. So when you hold your breath after the exhale, expiration, right? You kind of die for a minute. You pause your breath. Life is a series of inhales and exhales. When you pause your breath for just a minute, boom, it's like a defrag. And your thought files reassemble, declutter. In fact, this was proven by our one friend neuroscientist called Jeff Tarrant, who did a study on us first, which is what inspired Cambridge, which showed how effective our technique was compared to psychedelics like psilocybin and also MDMA. And he found it was just as effective with just 22-minute session. And it's this defrag effect that happens, which brings down the default mode network and kind of refreshes the brain. It's like, you know what happens with your computer when it gets cluttered?
Mm.
Boom, you press defrag and it clears the files, right? The computer runs more efficiently. Same thing I'm talking about with the breath we can do. Yeah.
And so, do you recommend, like, in terms of people, then, if they were going to use that on an intermittent basis during their day, when they're getting into that kind of cluttered state, have you found that there are, when we look at like natural rhythms, for example, and we look at sleep, it follows generally around a 90-minute cycle. And there's been quite a bit of writing around, recovery cycles. Every sort of 90 minutes, you almost need to defrag and actually just allow yourself to recover to then bring that kind of intensity again. I'm curious whether you found that there's a certain period that helps to optimize that, because because there's this law of diminishing returns, isn't there? People can almost try harder and harder and keep going, and actually you're
Yeah.
not being any more productive with what you're doing because
Yeah.
the brain's really tired. And I've
Well,
definitely seen
yeah.
like a correlation where people will get food cravings actually just because they're not allowing the brain to recover. And actually something like breath work, then they don't actually need, and they don't have those cravings afterwards. Do you see what I mean? If they, instead of going to get food, they actually focus on their breath, it changes things quite quickly.
Well, that's why, like, I mean, if you go by the Pomodoro technique, you should do it in 20-minute bursts, not 3 hours, right? So 20 minutes, and so you do hardcore work for 20 minutes, like fully in your flow, have a break for like a minute, and one simple hack is humming for just like even 30 seconds, right? Just humming. Hum. Or if you're in an office or something, which some people, and you don't want to like disturb people, just bringing your awareness to your breath. Nasal breathing, diaphragmatic breathing, keeping your breath smooth, circular, subtle, rhythmic, diaphragmatic, and just doing that for 20, 30 seconds is a great little switch, off switch for stress. And then you can go and have some water, walk about, and then get back on it.
Get back on it.
Another really quick way to boom, wake up is anaerobic exercise. All right. So I actually have an app called Chair Guru. Right. It's a cool little app which has a bunch of exercises that you can do through. I teach you it through video, and it's a Google Chrome plugin, and basically it pops up based on whatever time you put in. So we recommend like 30 minutes for if you're doing the Pomodoro technique, or once an hour. Okay. And boom, it will alert you with an exercise. And one of the exercises I teach is anaerobic exercise. So what that means is basically shutting off oxygen, right? So not breathing, and then doing exercise like push-ups, holding your breath, or hold your nose and walk around the room and count how many times you do it, and do that for a couple of rounds, all right? And what that does is it gives you a big burst of nitric oxide and CO2 in one hit. And this actually dilates all your blood vessels, and it's like having an amazing coffee. I actually do this in the morning. It's amazing. And it makes you go to the toilet. It unblocks
It
you,
makes you go to
clears
the
you.
toilet.
Yeah. It
That's
cures
interesting.
constipation. Yeah. Forget about constipation. It won't happen now if you do this. And you have to be you have to do it intensely. Don't just do it till the first urge to breathe. You have to like wait till you get that adrenaline rush of holding your breath. You really feel that heat. Then do it again, walk around the room. You get that heat generate. Again, hold your nose, walk around. Do it 2 or 3 times in a row, and you'll really start moving the bowels. Your nose will unblock, your brain will wake up, and you'll feel like you're fresh, like you've had the best coffee ever.
But you could do this with push-ups as well, that's what you're saying.
Push-ups you can do, but not everyone can handle push-ups. This is by far the easiest thing you can ever
Just
do.
walk around.
Just to walk
So
around the
let me
room.
get this right. So there's no preparation. It's literally, but out in and out through the nose, right? And then you
Through the nose.
hold after the out breath. You're quite.
Yeah.
That's quite an accelerated out breath there.
Yeah, because you want to get all the air out.
Okay. And then
Yeah.
hold, walk around. Is there a time that you should
Yeah.
work towards doing that for? Or just until you get air hunger?
Well, just count like how many steps you do. Everyone's going to be different with their ability, but if you can get 60 steps, normal pace steps or more, right? You're doing a good job.
Okay, cool. I'm
And
gonna give
this
this
is
a go.
also a way of training yourself to have higher CO2 tolerance.
Yeah.
So it has many different side effect benefits.
So let's talk about this CO2 tolerance. As you start to build that, when you're saying that your breath is the foundation of health, which I agree with, what kind of benefits are we seeing in the body from training that?
So, well, people with any kind of congestion usually fixes that. People who've got inflammatory issues, they tend to, you know, improve their symptoms, especially people who've got tension and chronic pain because of constant tension. Because if you're stiff, right, if you're rigid, if you're stiff, if just do this as an exercise, like go like that and tighten your hand like that, and try and move your fingers around. It's painful and hurts, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people, that's their default state is this. And
Tense.
actually oxygen hyperventilation makes this happen. Have you been to holotropic breathwork
I
or
haven't been.
rebirthing class where you
No.
just hyperventilate for an hour? People go like this, they contract like that. It's because oxygen is a contractor, it contracts your muscles, right? It shrinks your blood vessels, it raises your blood pressure. CO2 does the opposite. So if you hyperventilate, if you've got too much oxygen in your bloodstream, bound to your red blood cells, right, you'll become stiff and rigid and you'll walk around like this, okay? And that then leads to pain. Also means you're not taking action because you haven't got the motivation to take action because you're so stiff and rigid. You become more uptight. Become a no person rather than a yes person. But as soon as you start retraining, this starts becoming loose, and then you start like playing the piano. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean that's what happens to most people, and because of that, you start getting blood flow to all of the areas of the body that haven't had blood flow for a long time, and you start to get remission of symptoms. So we've had incredible stories. People with chronic Lyme disease, people with arthritis, people with other autoimmune, people with chronic muscle pain being healed after doing the 21 days, right? And just doing breath fit just in the first few days and doing our yogic exercises. So the asana is done according to traditional yoga, where you're holding your breath with the poses in different ways. That will just transform people's lives. And if you make that into your way of life, okay, and that's the cool thing with Samadhi, what we created is it makes it easy to put this into a way of life.
Mm.
We have live class. It's like an online gym, a Soma Breath gym or Soma Breath retreat, where we have live classes happening like every week, several times a week, plus on-demand content, a whole library of stuff you can just tune into. And that way it's like you have something you can do, a routine that you can follow. It's really cool.
I love that. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
And so what would be the difference when you talk about breath fit and then you talk about the 21 days? If people are thinking, well, which one do I start with? What's the difference between these two?
So BreathFit is a breathing retraining course with focuses around daily things you should do every day to improve your health, right? It's very much around fit. That's why it's called BreathFit. It's really about your fitness, your default state, right? Now, the 21 days is more about your self-discovery, self-realization, finding out who it is, who you really are, and what it is that you really want. And it's a powerful, not only a breathwork course, but it's also a meditation program. It really is deep meditative program of self-realization. But it also has therapeutic health benefits because you're following intermittent hypoxic protocol done in a specific way over 21 days. So it's like an all-round program. That's why we recommend doing them both together, together as a sequence. Because if you do breathfit first, that sets you up with going super deep in the 21 days. Yeah.
How long is breath fit?
Breathfit is 11 days.
Okay. So
Yeah.
that's kind of that
But then it's
foundation.
lifelong. It's
It's
lifelong.
lifelong.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're doing it.
And the
That was
21
the
days
thing.
is a 21-day course. Yeah.
Yeah, that was what I noticed with the 21-day course is it is a transformational experience. And it's just the way you dive into like the law of sexual transmutation from Think and Grow Rich, I think is in there from memory. It was some time ago that I did it, and just really understanding these states was really, really powerful for me. And just visualizing your ideal day and exactly how you kind of becoming the architect of your life, I would say, is one of the principles in there that I certainly got from it.
Totally. That's right.
Yeah. I'm curious, Niraj, because I think listeners will be wondering about this. What does your day look like in terms of your practice? Like, can you walk me through from
Yeah.
the moment you wake up in the morning? What do you do?
Yeah. So I actually get up and I tend to drink water first. That's the first thing. All right. But I do this exercise. Is the first thing I do. Right. So I'm walking around and I don't do exercise unless I've cleared my bowels. So that's why I do this first as well. And it kind of boom wakes you up. And I generally make so that's when I'll do like some kind of morning routine as well. But then I'll make this super potent coffee concoction. I call it the Renegade coffee, which is basically really good quality coffee, ghee, colostrum, right? All blended together, and it tastes incredible, like magic. And that's my breakfast. I don't eat then until much later on in the day. I'm not one of these like people who is so fussed about um, every day doing intermittent fasting. Like I don't eat. I have a big gap during the day where I don't eat, but everyone's different, right? So some people can't go without food for so long. They need little and often, right? This is the Ayurvedic system. The Vata people generally need little and often food. Otherwise, you get ratty, you get this too much air building up in the gut, and it can disrupt your mood, right? But you just need a little bit of food, not too much throughout the day. So you just eat little and often, right? But then other people need to do fasting, right? The ones who tend to put on weight more easily, intermittent fasting is great for them. I'm somebody who's kind of a bit in the middle. So I tend to have that morning drink, which isn't like a big meal, but it's a drink, so it's easy to digest. And it is a kind of a mild fast, I'd say. And then I'll eat a lot later on in the day. I do like work, I get in the flow of meetings, quite busy these days. But I tend to also do like these more like breaks of exercise to space it out. Every hour I do something, you know, physical in my little studio.
And do you have a like specific meditation, like time for meditation, for example? You were saying for those that are listening, what Niraj was talking about, in case you couldn't hear it on the audio, was he does the sharp intake and outtake of breath and walk around with the breath hold in the morning. Do you have a meditation practice that you follow? Like, do you meditate when you wake up, for example, or do you actually do those kind of breath holds with walking, have your coffee, and dive straight into the day?
I vary it. So I don't do any of these long meditation practices. You know, I'm at a point in my life where I've figured out a lot of things already. I'm pretty in a pretty good place. I did a lot more meditation stuff several years ago, you know, like, especially when I was recovering and all this from colitis. I was really deep into meditation, and now I'm in action mode, right? You know, I remember Osho once saying like, we don't need any more meditators. You know, we've got enough meditators. When he was talking about his city that he built, he said we need action takers. If we want to make a difference in the world, we need the action takers. So he was actually calling the action takers and not meditators to come to the city at some point. So I'm kind of like that too now. I'm like I'm all about taking massive action. And I that's why I love like what we've done with Summer Breath is that, you know, you can get in like just 10 minutes, one round of our breath techniques, some really amazing benefits. Right. So that's all you need. You don't need like hours of meditation a day unless you're trying to figure something out, unless your mind is very erratic and you're not in your element, you know, and you want to get back into your element. So yeah, my day is like I vary it up. I do this exercise where I do anaerobic exercise. That's my preferred choice. I don't tend to go to gyms that much. I want to. We just moved to Ibiza, so we're just getting back in the flow, and we've been traveling a lot. But the reason I usually go to the gym is to do this inroading kind of exercises where you're very slow weight training, right, with heavy weights. But I also do functional isometric training where you don't even need any weights. So I'll give you one example: is you just push for like 12 seconds, maximum effort, against an immovable object, which is your body, right? Best immovable object is your own body, counteracting against each other. And that actually is a really good exercise. Very
It is
powerful.
really good
Called
exercise. You can actually
functional.
see the intensity of it
Yeah,
when
yeah, it's very
yeah,
intense.
when you're doing it.
And you get like a burst of, you know, positive hormones there as well. But this type of exercise, like, you can do anywhere. You can do it with a chair. You can do it against a wall. Functional isometric training. Check it out.
Yeah, that's cool. And what about cold exposure? Do you couple it with any cold exposure? It's so often that we see kind of breath work go hand in hand with cold immersion. Do you practice that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have here in Ibiza, like, we don't have like any ice bath set up or anything, but in Koh Phangan, that was like a regular way of life. The sauna and ice. And that's why after this bit of traveling we've got going on, I'm gonna be more grounded. I'm gonna, there's a gym that has both. It has like cold plunge and sauna, and I'm gonna start going to that more often. The sauna is my church, so I'm really big into that. And so we actually every winter rent our own kind of church, which is Casa Soma, which is an amazing villa where we do our retreats, and it has a sauna in it, and we do these amazing protocols there. So I'm really looking forward to getting back into that actually.
I've heard you talk with Ben Greenfield actually about breathwork in the sauna. I'm kind of
Yeah,
getting back over sauna, getting back into my sauna now. In the summer months, I kind of use it less. And then as it gets colder, I tend to sort of dive in there more. And obviously, we get much less light here in the UK when you go through autumn and winter. Um, what are the kind of breathwork techniques that you use in the sauna? So when you're combining it with heat?
yeah. So Ben, the thing that he does, I wouldn't do that personally. It's way too intense for sauna. What I do is just humming. My main
Okay.
is slow rhythmic breathing, extended exhalation, and humming. And that gets you into really deep meditative states. If you breathe in for 4, out for 8, and then hum, so in for 4, out for 8, do that several times until you feel a bit of a charge, and then boom, hum for as long as you can, and then repeat. And then you can speed it up in for 2, out for 4, and hum. We've made tracks specifically for this. So we do
For the
sauna
sauna.
rituals where I bring in the speaker and we do it all together, like powerful, deep sauna rituals together. Yeah,
Interesting. I'd like to try that because I've tried meditating in the sauna, and that's fine in an infrared sauna initially because obviously it's not as hot until your body starts to really heat up, and then it becomes so uncomfortable that it's actually quite difficult. Whereas I can imagine humming and focusing on the breath, you're still in that sort of doing mode. Effectively, it's
yeah,
easier when you're trying to tolerate heat stress.
totally.
Yeah. So those sauna sessions, are they in samadhi?
No, that would be that's more safe for our retreats and instructor training.
Okay, for the
Our
instructor
instructors
training.
have access to all of that stuff.
And how long is your instructor training if someone wanted to become a Soma breathwork instructor?
Yeah, so we have 2 courses. We have an entry level breathwork course, which is the first stepping stone to becoming a full Soma Breath transformational coach. Or we have the transformational coach program, which is a long program. It can take 6 months or more, depends on how fast you go. And it's full on like transformational coaching course that the foundation is breath, but we go into many different areas from Soma breath yoga to ecstatic dance to shaking practices to other tantric practices, purification techniques with sauna. It's really holistic. It's everything we do, like our retreats and more, and also how to deliver one-on-one experiences for people and to take people through big transformations, you know, um, using our protocols.
And the shaking actually is interesting, is something that I find it's really relaxing, right? When you do shaking. And if you notice dogs shake, I always laugh at my dog. If I stroke my Labrador, he kind of shakes. He
Yeah,
does a little shake afterwards.
totally,
Yeah,
totally.
it's a really, but it's amazing how relaxed you feel after you do either full body kind of shaking or tapping.
Correct. Yeah. So the shaking is one of that practice is one of the most favorite ones from everybody. The most transformative like experiences we do at the retreats, and we do it for like 30 minutes to an hour sometimes. Right, depends on the intensity, but it usually goes with shaking into then full power ecstatic dance. That's something I do a lot is shaking and dancing throughout the day. That's my favorite form of exercise. But you really do release all the tension out of the system. You let go of a lot of unresolved emotions. Unresolved emotion creates this tension as well, right? And it also affects your breathing. So releasing that, letting go of that, having practices to let go of unresolved tension and emotion is foundation for optimum well-being.
On a daily basis,
Yeah,
not
it
just when
should.
you've built
Everybody
up
should
that
do it.
tension.
Exactly. Everybody should have some daily practice.
Yeah. And what about, let's talk about the tantric practices.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you explain more about those?
Yeah, so that's more about using the life force energy, the sexual energy, and circulating it around and using it for a higher purpose. Because we're manifesting all the time. All day long, we're manifesting, right? And most of us are manifesting what we don't want because we don't know what we want. So when you know what you want, that's the foundation, then you can start using magic, right, to get what you want faster. And one of the practices is sex magic, is sexual transmutation, is using sexual life force energy, the most creative, potent force of nature for a higher purpose, right? And so we teach you how to do that.
Just on the manifesting, because I think people get a bit confused around this, and law of attraction, law of vibration, what really manifesting is. I think there's a perception among people almost that they can't necessarily achieve what they're hoping to achieve, or that they've got to kind of moderate what they want to achieve. Whereas manifesting, right, is combining what you want and your kind of vision for your life in conjunction with the right vibration and the right thoughts, and everything kind of aligning, if you like, together. Um, what When you say that, it's just quite interesting. I want to pick up on something you said, which is that most people are manifesting what they don't want. Is that because you feel that they are engaging? Because your brain is like, I know from when I was depressed, right? It's like Google. It will just keep on, or YouTube. If you watch one video, it'll show you more videos that are like that video. And so if you have a thought and you engage with that thought, your brain is going to show you more thoughts, like
Yes.
attracts like. I'm just curious, yeah, what you found there, and how people can kind of transform those thoughts. Because I think it is, as you say, easy for people to get into this negative spiral.
Correct. So what I mean by that is that we are all powerful manifestors. All of us creating things all the time. Experiences, everything that happens in our life is a result of the inner world, right? So we are programmed from a young age, right, to believe certain things, to create belief system. We call them reality tunnels. That's why humans are so predictable, because most people's reality tunnels already been envisaged for them and laid out as a plan for them. And that's what the government does, right? They create schooling systems, educational systems, and occupational programs that get you into a job, a career, into debt because you spend a lot of money at university, and then one day hopefully you can get a job. And then the media is constantly propagating an image of what success looks like. Success looks like working really hard, right, to then drive expensive cars and wear expensive clothes and do this and that, like, keep up with the celebrities, right? But basically when people get into their jobs and all that, they realize that actually they're probably working harder on their jobs. They may have some money, but they don't have enough time to even spend it. Or their job just keeps them above broke, right? Job stands for just over broke, right? And so they're constantly in a rat race and they never get out of this. And they do everything society tells them. They get the house, the mortgage, which is impossible to pay off. They get the kids, they marry, the person from down the road. They do everything that their parents told them to because they're just repeating the same programs as well. But they're so busy, they never stop to listen, to think, why am I so unhappy? I've done everything I'm supposed to do, but why am I still unhappy? And if they spend a little bit of time to answer that question, the truth might emerge. And the truth is that we've constructed a world, a society that is actually the image of corporations, and a few massive corporations that spend billions of dollars to program you to be a certain way, to think a certain way, to act a certain way. And this was what creates very predictable patterns of behavior, right? And people don't change. The reptilian brain, the part of the brain that is programmed the most from the young age, doesn't like change. It wants you to stay the same, because doing anything different from what the tribe is doing is too much of a threat to your survival, because this is a primal instinct to belong, right? It's one of the biggest human urges, is community and belonging. So if you feel excluded from the community, it can be very stressful, because it's like if you were back in the tribal times, when we did live in tribes, if you're excluded from the tribe and you're on your own in the jungle, you're going to die, right? So now, what's happening is there's a big mainstream culture that's been created, which is the way we're supposed to live our life. which is clearly broken because look how unhappy people are, the level of depression, the stress out there, the dysfunction of our leaders, right? It's obvious that there's something not right with this. But what happens is because we're so programmed like operating systems on the hard drive of a computer, which is your body, your brain, your nervous system, your neurology, and your mind is the operating system. Because it's so heavily programmed, it's really hard to wake up out of that dream, okay, out of that illusion. So until something shakes you up and wakes you up, and usually it's when people get really sick, right? Is when they have a big wake up call, or if they lose their house suddenly, they get made redundant. These are usually wake up calls. If their wife suddenly divorces them for some reason, something wakes you up, right? And usually it's something nasty, right? But you can wake up through inspiration. You can have a wake up through inspiration. And this wake up, what it usually leads to is an inner truth, a truth of what it is truly that makes you tick, your element. What is it that you're here to do, your mission, your purpose, which can evolve and change, but you start to get more of an inclination of what that is. And when you start doing that, you don't need the secret, you don't need books, manifesting books, nothing. You just need to understand the clarity of what it is, where you want to go. And then you start manifesting the things you really want, because we're constantly creating what we don't want, because what we don't want is what's been programmed into us, right? Because that's what keeps us subservient and slave-like. But the real truth is that human beings aren't slaves, right? We're actually gods. Each and every one of us have the power of God within, right? To be super creative geniuses that can push humanity forward. But this has been suppressed, all right? And when you have this wake-up call, you can get this inner alignment and you suddenly start manifesting what you really want. Now, this is not for everybody, right? What I've started to realize is that there's a lot of people who are very happy in the being comfortably numb. They like the robotic security. And it comes down to these 5 human needs, right? When you figure this out, everything changes, right? You could say there's 6. Okay, so we need this level of uncertainty in our life, right? Sorry, let's start with certainty. We need a level of certainty in our life. That means we need to know we got food on the table, a roof over our head, and things that are predictable, that gives us security and survival, right? Then we need actually the opposite. We need an element of surprise. We need uncertainty. Now, some people can handle a lot bigger thresholds of uncertainties than others. Like the entrepreneurs, like probably a lot of people listen to this, you're following, are probably bigger risk takers than the average person, right? So if you're in a very safe, secure job, right, because you manifested that, because that's what you're programmed to do, you may feel uncomfortable in that because you need that growth. You need the next need, which is growth, right? We need to grow. We need to feel like we're growing. Okay, and then the other need is significance. We want to feel significant. Everyone has their own threshold of significance. Some people need to be on stage, thousands of people in front of them. Others just want to feel seen in their own home, right, with their family. So everyone has the different levels of significance. And then love and contribution, right? So once you've got those first needs met, then we start to think about spiritual things like love, giving back, contribution. And then once you have all of that, once you feel an alignment with all those things in your life, right? And one way you can get this, right, is certainty, by being clear about what it is you want, finding people out there who are already doing what it is that you want, and then either getting them as your mentor or learning from them. Listen to the podcast, interviews, autobiographies, finding if they have any like roadmap courses, or if they have a strategy which you can follow and emulate and copy. And almost always, because this is how my life's been, because life is so predictable when you really analyze it, it's very program-like, right? If you follow a program, that's why we call courses programs, usually you get that result that's promised at the end of it. Usually, if you do all of the work and actually do it, the people who don't get the results is usually because they don't take the action, right? But you get the results. You know, you have a program. If your clients follow it, they get the results. If they don't, they don't, right? So if you get proven program to follow, you're almost guaranteed to get the result, okay? But you need a bit of variety, a bit of uncertainty as well. So you want to have surprises. And when you got down a path of alignment, usually loads of positive surprises come your way that keeps you growing. That's the next one, growth. And you start to grow, you start to get significance from that, right? And then you get to a point where you start being able to give back and contribute. And you can get love and contribution actually very quickly by aligning what it is you want, your mission, with something that automatically gives back. So what a lot of entrepreneurs, that's why they're, I find, the most fulfilled in life, is because they're aligned with something that's solving a problem out there in the world. The entrepreneurs that are the most fulfilled that I've met are the ones who are solving big problems in the world with their problems, with their programs. The ones that aren't fulfilled usually are the ones who are creating problems. Right? They're selling shit that creates more problems. They're
That's
usually
true.
the ones who end up depressed at the end of it.
Yeah.
So what we try and do is create this alignment for everybody, you know, starting with our instructors. Yeah.
Starting with your instructors, and then they feed that mission into the world. Yeah.
Okay.
It's interesting what you say there, because I couldn't agree more. I think sometimes people find it difficult to find their purpose, but I know, for example, for me, and my journey was very similar to yours, right? I was born out of a health battle, but then when I had to make that decision to leave law finally and turn my back on the conditioning and that safety of that gravy train of knowing exactly how it worked, was predictable. It took actually a huge amount of courage and an identity shift to be able to do that, and to realize that my self-esteem wasn't wrapped up in that title, right? Because there's the significance. So I had to kind of almost undo myself, right? And shed the old
Yeah.
to become a new and create that identity. But then, as you say, when you're driven, like for me, that mission driven purpose is to empower women, to empower female performance, because I think that women struggle on a number of levels. And if we can empower them, that feeds in turn creates a ripple effect through their children, through the people that they work with across the world. It's just so far reaching. So I don't have to think about getting out of bed and why I might do it, because as you say, I don't have to get into a state. The first thought that's in my mind is, how am I going to take that mission? How am I going to take it forward today? That's the only thing that comes into my head,
Yeah.
which I imagine is similar for you, right? But I think it's difficult for some people. They might be listening to this and thinking, that's great, but I don't know how to find what my mission is. And do you think that everyone has a mission? Or, as you say, some people maybe are happy to have a good job that they go into, they get enough money for holidays, they put some money away from retirement, because not everybody is an entrepreneur.
Totally. So mission really is, a variable thing. Like you don't have to like change the world, right? That doesn't need to be your mission. Everybody's mission is equally important, right? So it could be simply you want to raise a healthy family that does good in the world, right? It could be something like you want to work for a company that you believe in and get out of this company that you're working for that you don't believe in, right? The product. Simple things like that. You're just aligning with, you can either create your own mission or align with someone else's mission. You don't necessarily have to have your own hardcore change the world mission, you know? But ultimately you have to have a job, right? You have you have to pay the bills somehow. There are people who are born, with loads of money, right? Inherited, but they're usually the ones who get the most depressed because they don't have that challenge. So if you don't have any money right now, if you're broke, right, and you're trying to figure things out, actually this is one of the best times to really crush it, because usually out of these moments is when you make something that changes the world. So that takes time to figure out by research. You have to research. You have to start figuring out what makes you tick. You can start listening to your heart. When you get butterfly feelings, when you listen to somebody's story, or you get excited about some product that you must have purchased in the last few months that changed your life, right? Or had an impact in your life, or dramatically improved your life, maybe you can see if they've got any positions open at their company. Yeah. So that's, maybe you can join their mission and you can start being a volunteer and doing stuff like that. Maybe you've made all your money, you're already successful, you've done all that stuff. The best way to now find spiritual mission is a spiritual mission. Best way to find peace of mind is spiritual mission. Is to do something that contributes, right? So peace of mind is what we're going for here. Peace of mind. That's the ultimate quest. Actually, the quest of yoga is bring tranquility to mind. Chitti niti viroda in Sanskrit. So that's the ultimate goal, is peace of mind. Now, there's a difference between love and peace, right? Love, you can get obsessed with love, something that you love to do. Like, I get super obsessed with making music. When I'm in the flow with music, like a day can completely go past and it could be like 3 in the morning and I'm like, oh my God, what have I done? I'm supposed to be here or there, or, my wife's like been waiting for me upstairs and what am I doing? So that love can become sometimes, it can affect your normal way of life. When you really love something, you're obsessed with it. And if that thing that you love is taken away, it can cause a lot of stress. It can get very distressed. And you could fall in love with someone and then they suddenly leave you and your whole life can fall apart. So that's why going for peace of mind is the foundation of what we do, right? Peaceful mind. And if you can figure out what would bring you peace of mind, peace, like real peace, lasting peace, you can then invite love in. And if it goes away, it doesn't really matter because you've got the foundation of peace. You're going to be okay with letting it go. So that's what our courses are about, is really cultivating a state of peace of mind. And samadhi literally is our version of samadhi. Samadhi is the ultimate bliss state, peace of mind. And it really does begin with your physiology. Your inner world becomes your outer world. So when you learn breath control techniques, you can actually invoke natural physiological states of bliss, which then calms your mind. And when you have a calmer mind, you can think more clearly. And then you become less obsessed with stuff, less addicted, less needing things, right, to make you feel fulfilled. And then every now and then you can get into your flow and go 48 hours, like no sleep, hardcore on a piece of art or music you're creating or business you're working on. And it's okay, you're fine. It's not going to affect you. And you then start to bring balance and discipline into your life because you're at peace. You're okay with things, right? And also when the world is falling apart like it appears to be right now, you're not triggered by it. You're not like too worked up. You may like vent sometimes, but it's not like physiologically messing you up and paralyzing you. And that's the problem with what's happening right now, is people getting paralyzed by fear and losing hope. And they think that there's no point doing anything because the world's going to end soon, right? So people have this, and it becomes an excuse to not do things, okay? And then they end up becoming into like loving to hate things. So they get obsessed with hating the government and blaming the government for everything, or corporations and people for everything. And they get obsessed in this drama, and that can stop them from doing what it is they really want. And and then that can cause a lot of stress, because love, as we know, can really fire up the stress hormones, right? You can feel anxiety on a level you've never felt before when you're obsessively in love with someone, right? And if like they didn't call you or didn't message you, it could like make your heart race for hours, right? I've been there. I'm speaking completely from experience on all of these matters because I've been there before. But now you're okay with, if you can cultivate peace of mind, that shit doesn't happen anymore. And you don't get these physiological triggers of cortisol and adrenaline and stress causing this paralysis and stiffness of your joints. And you just become more healthy. So all of our techniques revolves around cultivating peace of mind, figuring out who it is that you truly are, what it is you want, and creating a roadmap strategy for getting it, but also being okay with maybe only getting 50% of it, right? Being okay with 20% of it, right? You don't have to do 100% because we help you create goals that are so powerful and big that I'm hoping that you don't reach them, because it would be impossible, right, to sometimes reach some of these massive goals in one lifetime. But it's good to have that aspiration as a talisman, a symbol to strive for. And then if you get 40% of the way, you're already doing really well. You're already crushing it.
And these the goal setting that you do, is this part of your instructor training, or is that all part of your
It's all
programs?
part of like the 21 day awakening protocol, but it's also the framework for the coaching. So our coaches are trained to help people get through each one of these steps. Cultivate peace of mind, create an alignment with your values, figure out your human needs, what you really want, what you need, and then create a roadmap strategy for getting it, but in a healthy, sustainable way, so you don't get burnt out.
Yeah. And then you kind of attract those opportunities into your life, right, that are truly in alignment with what you wanted, which I
Yeah,
think
and then
people
life
are
becomes
often
magic.
surprised by. Yeah.
Yeah, then life becomes like a magical journey.
Yeah, exactly. And it happens so much faster. That's such a great explanation of manifesting. Um, Niraj, thank you so much for coming on. Where can people find out more about you? I think Natasha has given us, I'll share a link that people can go to actually to try out Soma.
Yeah.
Where can people connect with you and find out more about you?
Yeah, so check out my Instagram, Niraj Naik Official on Insta. So I'll give you a link to that. And join our YouTube channel, Soma Breath, Facebook group, Soma Breath. Check out the website and check out the discount links that you've got that you can share. And yeah, fantastic.
I'm smiling now because I've just realized that I've pronounced your name incorrectly right at the end of the show. I think I introduced you as Naik. It's Naik, Niraj
Or
Naik.
Naik. Naik is fine.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. That's good. That's probably
Amazing.
right.
Sorry?
That's probably more correct. Naik.
Naik. Amazing. We will link to all of that in the show notes. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And if you haven't listened already to the first episode I did with Niraj, almost, I think, 3 years ago as well, where we dive into kind of breath holds and things like that as well. Both of these episodes really complement each other if you want to kind of dig deeper, and then we'll link to all the resources that Niraj has shared too. So thanks so much. Thanks again for coming on.
Amazing. Thank you. Cool.
Cool.